Yo, what's up, peeps? Ambassador here, and this is going to be episode 2 on the woods used to make guitars, or what we commonly call tone woods. Now, in episode 1, we talked about the different woods that are used on the top and the sides and the back in terms of their frequency response, right? Picture it like a horizontal chart. In fact, this is the chart that we used. Hopefully that flashes up on the screen for you. And what they do is they show it to you sort of in a horizontal pattern. The longer the line, the broader the frequency response of that wood in terms of its ability to pick up, right? To pick up and resonate with the frequencies and then to express them for us to be able to hear them. Okay? So rosewood has a very broad frequency range. It picks up and expresses the highs. It also picks up and expresses the lows, along with the mids. Maple, for instance, is a much smaller line, and it's great for treble or high end. It's considered very bright tone wood. Great for jumbo guitars, but maybe not so great for a regular guitar, although it is used in violins a lot. Okay. So the next thing we're going to talk about is something totally different that we often don't think about, which is the vertical chart, okay? And remember, these are just visual charts. They have nothing to do with, these are man-made, right? This is not from nature. It's just our way of trying to understand it and our way of trying to express it to one another using charting patterns, basically, the same way we do with a lot of different subjects. So this chart is another one of my favorites, okay? Now, it shows the top woods here, and that's the wood that's on the top of your guitar. We often call it the soundboard. And then here, this bottom chart is for the back and side woods. And most of the time, I would say 90% of the time, you're going to find the same wood used on the back and the sides of the guitar, unless it's a real boutique-y kind of a guitar that was specially made. But most of the time, when it says backed with mahogany, that means the sides are also made of mahogany, okay? So what I really dig about this chart here, and hopefully you guys are seeing it full on your screen there, is that it does show you the horizontal, okay? So for instance, what you see here all the way to the right is the maple, meaning that it has a very trebly or high-end response. That is one of the primary aspects of maple as a tone wood. Again, great for a jumbo guitar to balance out the deep richness that you get out of a jumbo, okay? And then you're going to notice in the middle, pure, clear tone, okay? And what they're talking about is the woods that are not too trebly and they're not too bassy, but they're just smack dab in the middle. And what you've got there is you've got myrtle wood, mahogany, koa, and walnut. And then over to the left, on the bass or low end side, are woods like East Indian rosewood, cocobolo, Brazilian rosewood, ebony, Madagascar rosewood, and this one, God, I don't even know how to pronounce it. Ziricote, maybe ziricote. I don't own one of those guitars yet, but I'm dying to. And honestly, cocobolo, I've heard it sounds fantastic. I cannot wait to get a cocobolo backed guitar. But as you know, if you've done any research on this, they're extremely expensive. A cheap cocobolo backed guitar starts at like $3,600. That's a lot for a cheap guitar, but it's simply a very expensive and protected wood. And we have to look at woods that way now in terms of how endangered are they? How much protection do they need, right? Okay, so what you'll also notice about this chart is that it also has a vertical axis too, right? So up here at the top, you're looking at woods that are very pure, clear, bright. You could even say snappy. They respond quickly. So those are great woods if you want a guitar that really cuts through and you can hear it immediately and it responds quickly, and whatever you play is what you get. It's great for strummers or for fast finger pickers because it responds quickly, right? Okay, now down here, vertically again, not horizontally, are woods that are less bright, less clear, less pure, and they're going to be more textured, more woody, more earthy. And what they're referring to there is the porousness of the wood, how many open pores it has in terms of taking the sound in and holding it for a second. What you're going to get is less fast or quick responsiveness, but you're going to get maybe more textured, thicker, woodier tone with more harmonic overtones and more sustain. Okay? Now, for me, obviously, you know, as a singer-songwriter, someone who writes a lot of songs and produces a lot of albums, you've got to have both because it depends on the song, right? If it's an upbeat, poppy song or even leans on the rock side but has an acoustic guitar as its rhythmic factor, you do need a guitar that responds quickly and it's clear and it's bright and you can hear every note. But if you're doing more of a slow piece, something that has room to open and explore, then you would love to have a guitar that has more open pores, more porousness to it, and has more room to breathe, and therefore an opportunity to present more harmonic overtones. So when you play a G, you hear a G, but you also hear all the other harmonic possibilities in that G. And it could be a G chord or even a G note, right? And that's the difference here between the vertical. Now what you're going to notice is all the way down at the bottom, I found this surprising too, is walnut. Now, for me, personally, out of all these guitars, the guitar that really has a lot of harmonic overtones is this very old 1970 Yamaha Fg-180. The first time I heard it, I just couldn't believe it. I was blown away. I didn't even know what I was hearing. I had to look it up, and as I told you in the first episode, my wife came into the room and said, that guitar sounds huge. It doesn't even sound like a guitar. It sounds like an orchestra. Now, okay, yes, I had it open-tuned, something like a D9, but it did really sound big. It did not sound like just someone strumming a guitar. It had a huge sound to it. What I learned is that because of the way the guitar is made and because of the woods used, it has a lot of harmonic overtones and a lot of sustain. Does it hit quick and sharp and fast? No, it does not. So it would not be good for an upbeat strumming pop song. It wouldn't. But for something a little bit slower, where you're just playing and you got a lot of notes going on in between, it is awesome. It's almost like you've added a delay pedal to it because the notes sustain so long. Now, what you're going to notice here is they have walnut as the most textured, earthy tone, and then they've got koa very close to it, and the ziricote very close to it. But walnut really seems to be the one that's lowest on the list, and therefore the most possibilities of an earthy, woody, harmonic overtone with a lot of sustain. And remember, two aspects. There's that aspect, and then the aspect of its frequency range. What frequencies does it respond well to and then express out, right? Now, real quick, because this chart does cover top woods, I told you guys in episode 1, for the most part, top woods are some form of spruce. They really are, without even looking at it. Sitka spruce, Engelmann spruce, Adirondack spruce, some kind of spruce is usually what's used on the top. Classical guitars, almost like 99%, 100% use red cedar, because classical guitars are plucked, much softer, quieter. That red cedar tends to be warmer and sustain more. See, harmonic dynamic tones, more earthy, light touch. Over here, pure, powerful, bold tones for heavy strumming. And of course, Sitka spruce and Adirondack spruce are over here. And that's the type of wood that's on the top of almost all acoustic guitars sold these days, because that's what people are looking for. But I'm telling you that if you can get a steel string with redwood or red cedar, oh boy, right? You take what they get out of classical music guitars and you put it on a steel string, you're talking about something absolutely beautiful. And more importantly, something different. So you can create songs that are different and push the envelope more, right? Something that no one's ever heard before. And honestly, that's really about it. I think in the first episode, we went over all the main woods that are used. We covered them all. Here, we mentioned a few others that aren't mentioned very often, like myrtle wood or walnut, for example. But that's pretty much what it comes down to when it comes down to tone woods. Now, what about the rest of the guitar? We could talk about that, and we could do it very quickly. Oftentimes, the necks of the guitars are made of a different wood than the top or the sides or the back. We've already covered that the top wood is almost always different than the sides and the back, and there's a reason for that. You want that top wood to have dense enough grains so it hits quick, responds quick, and you need that so you can hear the guitar. But then underneath that, with the sides and the back, you can go with something deeper, richer, wider, less dense grains, so you can have a deeper, richer, earthier tone if that's what you're looking for, right? The necks often are made of mahogany, especially these days, okay? It's a solid, hard wood. I actually believe that the type of wood used on the necks is just as important as the backs and the sides. That's me. The fretboard itself, okay? The fretboards, believe it or not, are not the same material as the necks. It's another piece of wood that's laid on top of the neck. And the fretboard, a lot of times, are made of ebony because it's a very hard wood. which is what you want when you're playing. You don't want to be playing on a soft wood. It's going to slow you down, right? Okay. Now, the next thing is the bridge. The bridge, right? The bridge. The bridges, I've noticed, and really, you've got like 60 to 70 years worth of guitars here, depending on the year that they were made. The bridges always seem to be made out of rosewood, even if it's just, it's a little bridge, but they're almost always made out of rosewood. I don't know why. Maybe it's just tradition. I don't know how much the bridge affects the sound. Now, on top of the bridge, of course, is the saddle, right? That's this piece right here. It's usually made out of bone or antler or tusk. Now, from what I've heard, the saddle, along with the nut, they're usually made of the same material. Those are very important to the sound of the guitar because it's the first thing that the strings hit when you strum it. A lot of people don't realize that, but think about that. When you touch those strings, the first thing that those strings touch are the nut and the saddle. So people primarily use bone, and it sounds fabulous. Sometimes they'll use antler. That sounds fabulous too. Now, I happen to love old German-made acoustic guitars like Hoffner or Framus. Oftentimes, their nut or their saddle is going to be made out of a metal, which is interesting because those guitars, the reason I love them, that's a 1968 Hoffner 491 there. This is a 1966 Hoffner 499 there. Extremely rare, very sought after. It's basically their version of the Gibson J200. Now with that one, it actually has an antler nut and saddle. But with that one, you're going to notice it has a metallic string holder. It doesn't even have a saddle. And to the side here, you can't see it, but I have an old 74 Hoffner 489, which is the model just below the 491. This thing sounds fantastic. It has a bone saddle, but the nut is very funky shaped metallic. Why is that important? The reason that's important is because right now, depending on when you're watching this video, but right now in 2021, all the cats are starting to replace their nuts or their saddles with brass to get a brighter, longer, sustaining, a little bit more metallic zing sound. Hoffner was doing that back in the 50s and 60s. That's the thing, man. What goes around comes around. These guys, they live, eat, sleep, breathe guitar making, right? From the age of 3 years old, they are born to be luthiers. They grow up in a luthier workshop, being taught it as a craft, and they live in luthier estate homes. This is in Germany, mind you. Hoffner and Framus built luthier estate homes, so luthiers could do their craft without worrying about where they lived or making the rent or any of their expenses, just so they could focus on making the best guitars possible. Another reason why I love German-made guitars. The headstocks, by the way, in case you're wondering, some are part of the neck, but most, the neck is underneath it, and just like it has a fretboard placed on top, it has a piece of wood glued on top of the neck wood. And it's usually the same type of wood as the saddle. I think that covers it, because really in this episode, what I really wanted to talk about is that vertical access. a clear, crisp tone versus an earthy, woody tone that offers you more harmonic overtones, longer sustain. It doesn't hit as quickly, but it also doesn't fall off as quickly. And that's going to depend on the style of music that you're making, right? But now you've seen the charts, you can begin to take notes on which types of wood you prefer for the style of music that you're looking to create. And if you're not looking to create any music and you just love music and you love guitar, I hope you've learned a little bit. I certainly have. I didn't know anything about this stuff, and I've been playing and writing songs and recording albums for a good 30 years, and I never paid attention to woods at all. I had just never thought about it. And all of a sudden I started thinking, hold on. The wood certainly has to affect the guitar. And I went crazy all year just studying woods, learning about them. Where's the wood? What tree is it from? And all these other crazy things. And we're going to do a third episode on this, where basically we just take different guitars and we play them so you can hear what the different woods sound like, because that's a very important piece too. But until then, as always, thanks for watching.